So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and of course, if you are listening to this recording locally. So welcome everybody. We've got Abby, David, Eddie, Hannah, Hugh, Jill, Martha, Ryan. Lovely to have you all here. Do let us know in the chat window where you are in the world and what the weather is like. We're here for a 30-minute live online learning question and answer session, and we're looking forward to that time with you. This is me. My name is Jo. My company is Lightbulb Moment, and what we specialise in is live online learning. Anything webinar and virtual classroom related, design, delivery, and everything in between. And that's what we are focusing on today. Also, we have with us Mike. Mike is in the chat window. He is the business operations manager here at Lightbulb Moment, and he's also the producer today. So if everybody else is here and in the chat, you can say a hello to Michael, and he'll be here helping you out. So I can see Martha, for instance, is having some problems with sound, so Mike is going to help her with that. And Mike has got the same last name as me. Well, that's because, for better or for worse, he's my brother, but don't worry, we won't argue in front of you today. And we do have some online tools that you can use. We've got the feedback icons first of all, and what we've got there, if you click the arrow next to the hand up, you'll see a whole menu in Adobe Connect that we've got today, including the agree and disagree. So let's go and click on one of those for now. Agree, disagree, you can laugh if you want, you can press the applause button, it's entirely up to you. So do go and click on that arrow next to the hand up. Thank you, Hugh. You've got that green tick, as has David and Abby. Brilliant. And we can use that throughout any time that you want to. So welcome if you are just joining us. We are just starting and going through the various different tools that we've got available. And of course, we also have the chat tool. So we can use that. We've got people saying hello already. So we've got Hugh. Hello, I made it as I was not on the Friday in the end. Yeah, thank you, Hugh. Eddie says hi from sunny Belfast. Hello Eddie, lovely to have you here. David from sunny Littlehampton. Oh, it's not far from where I grew up. Lovely, David. Hi Abby. Hi Ryan from Ayr in Scotland. Hi Martha from London, where it's also sunny. Abby is in, how do I pronounce that? Linlithgow in Scotland. And Hannah from Derbyshire. Hello everybody. And Helen, hello. I think you're in Brussels, aren't you, Helen? So lovely to have you all here. Please use that chat window to chat with each other, to make suggestions, to ask questions of each other, to share links if you want to. You can also change the text size and the colour if you want to. And then on to the questions. Have a look at the bottom left corner of your screen, and there is a Q&A panel. So in that panel, you should be able to type in there your questions. So if you type them in chat, that's absolutely fine. There's only a few of us today. We'll catch it, and I've got my trusty producer with me, so he'll catch anything that I miss as well. But in that bottom left-hand corner, that's where you're typing your questions. And it's a question and answer session. So what we're doing is looking at what questions you have, and we're being driven entirely by you. So if you don't ask any questions, I'm not really sure what I'm going to talk about for half an hour. Yeah, those of you that know me will know I can talk for half an hour without too much trouble. But please do make sure you ask your questions in there. It could be around facilitator questions that Mike has mentioned there in the chat, but it could be around other things that you need to ask as well. So do go and type it in there. What I am going to do though is start with the questions that we've got in our community. So whilst you're having a think and a type, what I want to do is just share my screen and have a look at the questions that we've got in our community. So our community, Mike will share the link in chat for you, completely free, completely open. You can go and join anytime and have a read of the questions. And Mike posted a post there about all the questions that we had available. So we've got a question here from Vicky. Hello Vicky. I don't think you're in the live session, but I know you'll see this on the recording. And what Vicky has asked is where to start with virtual training. So normally she said she'd just sit down with a few members of staff and show them how she does things. Well, Vicky, I think you can start with a screen share is a really great place to be. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now, is sharing my screen. So you can still do that with just a couple of people, and whatever platform you've got, you'll be able to share your screen and still talk them through things a little bit like I am now. So perhaps go and have a look at those and have a play with that, and of course come back and ask any specific questions on the community if you want to. And Hugh, now we've got Hugh with us. Hello, Hugh. And Hugh had asked a question about content heavy sessions and focusing on compliance information. Okay, so I'm sure that you have had these issues as well. In the chat window, what advice do you have for Hugh about content heavy sessions? I'm pretty certain we've all had those where we've got a lot of information to get through and perhaps not much time to do it. So let me come back to our questions and answers. We're answering Hugh's question about content heavy sessions in the chat window. How do you approach that? For me, it's about making sure what is the real absolute basic needed content. That's where I would start. David is saying we try and use resources before and after. David, I love that, because this is really important with regards to making sure that people are set up before the session and afterwards. And what I find is that if you're having a live online session, the point is it's live. The point is we're here together to be able to discuss these things. So maybe it's that flipping the classroom thing and actually making sure that what you do is you sort of send out information before, so that the conversation time you've got in the session is really, really important. So I think that's a really good one. Absolutely, my pleasure, Hugh. That's a good place to start. I'm sure other people will have some suggestions as well. Dawn, hello, Dawn. Lovely to have you here. Dawn says, agree, get stuff to people in advance and state they will be expected to arrive and ready. So just be ready for that content, and then to discuss it, ask what questions they have, how they're synthesizing that information. In other words, how they're bringing it together and using it. There's a really good place that you can also start, and this is with action mapping. So let me go and jump to here. So Kathy Moore, and her website is, I think, kathymore.org. I can't remember now. And she has got an absolutely amazing approach called action mapping. And if you haven't heard of it before, I really suggest you go and look it up. She's also got a book called Map It. You can see the screen grab in that bottom right hand corner, that orange book. And her whole thing with action mapping is to really focus on what is it that people need to do at work. And once you've got that really clear in your mind, then actually it's a really good place to go from there, because after that it's like, well, what resources do we need? What training do we need? How are we going to structure that? So Mike has gone and shared that blog from Kathy Moore about action mapping. So thank you very much for sharing that, Michael. I think that's a good place to be. Let's use that green tick. How many of you have heard of action mapping? So up at the top of the screen where you've got the hand up icon, or the waving hand icon, click the arrow next to that, and you should be able to select agree or disagree. So agree or green tick if you have seen that before. So some of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't. So it's a green tick if you're in the application. It's an agree or disagree if you're in the browser. And Hugh is saying, I think my normal style is that I lecture and then just question and answer. Can I do this online or need engagement? Good question, Hugh. So I think everybody's probably going to jump into the chat and let you know what they think on that one. My kind of thing, if you've listened to the podcast, which you say you have, it's all about that engagement. And it's really important that you have that throughout, even if it's you just pause Hugh at different points and say, what questions are there? That's really powerful. I've started a bit of a discussion on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, Hugh, I'm at Lightbulb Joe, and I started a discussion about this recently, and the general consensus is have your interaction. So definitely go and design that in different ways. And one of the things that we have available to you is you can go and download a facilitator guide template, and that will really help you. And again, Mike will share that link in the chat for you. And what you can do is you can use this to map out what you normally cover and help you with your planning, with your interaction, with where your questions are, with using your different software. You don't have to do exactly like I have, but there's something there that you can go and maybe take and use, Hugh, just to start making that journey. David's agreeing that you need the feedback. And Eddie, welcome back. So you've logged in. Eddie, you've clicked your hand up. We haven't got audio on our session today. Maybe you're agreeing, and that's fine. You can click that hand up icon again and it will go away, or that hand waving icon. But if you wanted to say something, Eddie, you can type it in chat and we'll have a discussion. Or if you've got a question, everybody, you can use that question and answer pod on the bottom left. Dawn says, Hugh, how about making a short video to clarify what you're asking people to read or do or prepare and bring to your session? Dawn, I love that. And Dawn, I know you've been getting into videos recently, so do share a little bit about how you got into that and what you find really good. Linda, hello Linda. You said, presume the way you run a session will be dependent somewhat on the content, but understand the need for engagement throughout. Yeah, and I think that's why I really like this facilitator guide. Obviously I like it, it's mine, but I like it, and the way I've developed it is to ensure that engagement. I've got the timing, I've got the icons there for the different way of working. And is it the chat window? Is it the whiteboard? Just making sure we don't overuse a tool. We don't want tool fatigue. So I think that's a great point. So thank you for that very much. Hugh says it sounds a bit advanced for me. Hugh, do not worry. It's all about the journey. So if something is a bit advanced for you at the moment, then that's absolutely fine. And you'll build up to it and make sure that you get there at some point in the future. And I think Dawn will probably be the first to say she wasn't there either. I hope I'm not kind of putting words in your conversation there, Dawn. But she's been doing a great job of building up to that too. And I'm sure she'll share a little bit about that. We've got something from Ryan. Ryan says, we host full-day conferences of lectures at the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Glasgow. We're looking to transfer these to live online sessions, currently using GoToWebinar. What would be the optimal time for a webinar? 4 hours max? We're concerned that our usual 9 to 5 day conferences will be far too long for a learning experience online. Well, Ryan, welcome, and what an amazing thing that you're doing there, and obviously with the current circumstances needing to change that. And I think you're doing a really good thing by looking at how can we do this? What's the best way of going forwards? So Ryan, what Mike is going to share is a link to our virtual classroom in numbers blog. And that's about how many people, how long is a session. Now that's a little bit different. That's focused on virtual classrooms, which we generally say is about 10 people or so. So what you're doing, I don't know how many people you're thinking of having in your sessions. I'm assuming 30, 50, or even hundreds, and you can let us know what that's going to be. So that is definitely a webinar, and that's really good. And it's a different kind of beast, if you like, but hopefully that blog will give you a few ideas. So what can we help Ryan with? Let's use that chat window. What are we thinking in terms of changing those normal full day lectures into live online, and the concerns that Ryan's got? So what ideas, what questions, what thoughts have you got to help Ryan? What ideas, what thoughts, what questions have we got that we can help Ryan with? And if you've got your own question, you've got that question answer pod on the bottom left corner. So Ryan says over 300 attendees. So that's definitely in webinar territory, Ryan. Excellent. And Linda says, are you having multiple speakers? I think is the question there. Dawn says, Dawn previously was saying about recording videos, about she's using Zoom for that, for intros and after the session where she makes a recap and incorporate output from the sessions and send it out. So thank you, Dawn. That's a really great way of using your live online platform to record that and send it out, and Zoom's easy for that. That's great. Dawn also says, I agree with Joe's flipped classroom, give them a task up front. So that's maybe a way to go. So whether that's useful for the lecture scenario, for your Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, it may or may not be appropriate. But that could be something to get people thinking ahead or get them primed and ready to come along. Linda says definitely need to make them interactive and do some exercises. Now, Linda, I completely agree with you, because otherwise it's just sitting and listening all day, and that can be really challenging. What I'd be slightly concerned with is that with GoToWebinar, there's a little bit less that you can do. There's a question pod, but there's no chat like we've got today. So you can still use that question pod in different ways, but you just have to be a little bit kind of creative maybe with those activities. But you do have polling, of course, so that can be used quite nicely. Ryan says we'll have 8 speakers spread over the day, and we'll have short breaks and Q&A sessions. Ryan, that's really important to have those breaks. You know how important that is in face-to-face sessions as well as live online. Because you want to make sure that people have got that time away from the screen, time to stretch. And probably we're all a little bit overdone on the screen time at the moment. Use that agree icon or the green tick next to that hand up or that hand waving icon if you're thinking, yeah, just a little bit too much on the old screen time at the moment. Maybe there's lots of people with Zoom fatigue is a thing. Mike, I think we've got a post about that on the community, haven't we? And Dawn's smiling there and laughing. So Mike, can you go and share that link from the community in the chat as well, please? Lots of people suffering with this Zoom fatigue, and some of you are in that same situation. So having that time away from the screen is really important. Martha says, Martha, looks like you've got your audio working. Great. Make sure it's really clear when breaks are and that these are reasonable. Otherwise, people will fidget. That's a really good point, Martha. So when we're running our virtual classroom training sessions, so when we're teaching 10 people on our 6-session virtual classroom facilitator course, those sessions are 2 hours each. And we have a sort of 5-6 minute break in the middle, but it depends on what's going on. The 5-minute break works brilliant at the moment where largely people are at home. But if people are at work and they need to go down a floor to the kitchen or up a floor to the loo, then quite frankly, we need a longer break. And especially if you're doing this all day, those breaks might need to be a bit longer, 10 or 15 minutes maybe between sessions. Depends how the day pans out. So Ryan, I mean, do keep asking questions on that. I think in terms of your day, if you've got those days already set, you know, they've been planned throughout the year, you've got your speakers lined up, people have got those learning days in their calendar, then there's a good reason to keep it as a day and have those 8 speakers spread over the day. If that's not yet set in stone, I would look at maybe making it half a day to make it a little bit more accessible and making it not quite so challenging live online. But if it's already set, then yeah, having the speakers, the interactivity, the Q&A, and making sure you have those breaks will be really, really good. Linda says the CIPD have moved their annual Festival of Work online, which is 2 days, and we will see how that works. Yes, they have. There's lots of online conferences at the moment. It's been a growing thing, actually, even before COVID-19. And what I'm going to do is actually just jump into my email, because there was something that came through just today, which I haven't fully read, but it was a really interesting article that I scanned through about the future of virtual events. So let me go and share that in the chat window for you. There you go. And it's got an infographic there as well. So I've had a scan of that, but not read it properly, but that might be interesting to look at, Ryan. Okay, where are we at? Dawn says, my question, why does my mouse disappear on Zoom for a Mac? It's given me a few aspirin moments. Oh no, Dawn. So let me see if we can understand this. Good question. And if anybody's had this experience, do let us know in the chat. So Dawn, I assume this is when you're sharing your screen or sharing PowerPoint. And maybe you're wanting to move on in a slide and you're trying to find it, or maybe you are wanting to click mute or unmute and you're trying to find your mouse, something like that. So let us know a bit more about that, Dawn, and we will come back to your question. In the meantime, Linda says, do you use different platforms for different types of webinar? Really interesting, Linda. So yes, we do. Sometimes, though, it's more to do with what our clients use. So because our main business is all about training people on how to deliver and design webinars and virtual classrooms, if our client uses Zoom, we use Zoom. If they use WebEx, we use WebEx. So it's really important to teach them in the software that they're going to be using. We always like to say we're platform agnostic. We kind of use different platforms. We know the ins and outs and the pluses and minuses of them, and we try and kind of get that across. And we actually have our next Q&A is going to be in a different platform again. Actually, it's going to be in a platform called Crowdcast. So I'll just paste the link in there that you can register for that. That's Tuesday the 19th of May. Actually, I think we maybe have changed that, but anyway, that's the next one. And that's a very different type of platform. That's much more webcast as opposed to learning tool. So it depends a little bit what you're doing. So if you've got a further question in there, Linda, then of course do let us know and we can come back to that. Ryan says, we do currently use GoToWebinar and have the 1,000 attendee plan. Great, you've got loads of room for growth in there, Ryan. We're open to moving though. What's everyone's preference for webinar tools? Adobe Connect, Zoom, Webinar Jam? Oh, that's a big question to unpack, Ryan, in the 8 minutes that we've got. Mike is going to share a link to our podcast that we've got about platforms. It probably won't answer every single question that you've got there, Ryan, but it will give you an idea. Adobe Connect and Zoom both have great webinar options. The one reason we like Adobe Connect over something like Zoom is if you're running a webinar and you've got multiple speakers, as a host, you've got much more control about what's going on. There's also a really amazing behind the scenes kind of feature called the presenter only area, where you can have things lined up, you can have private chat going on for planning, and that's really awesome. So for that kind of thing, I love Adobe Connect. Zoom does have a webinar tool. It's really easily used by people. You do have to be aware of security. And again, Mike will share a link about the security issues that are kind of coming up. So you have to be aware of that. But it is quite easy to use, which is good. Webinar Jam is a great tool for webinars as well. The way I understand Webinar Jam is it's a little bit more oriented towards sales. So it's really great if you want to do special offers and that kind of thing. So for a learning experience, I'd probably stick with the Adobe Connect or Zoom end of things rather than Webinar Jam. So hopefully that gives you some help there in the right direction, Ryan. Sandra says, my organisation is using MS Teams and starting to use this to deliver training. 10 maximum and live event for Q&A for the whole organisation. So well done, Sandra. That's sounding absolutely great. And it sounds like you're kind of doing some really good stuff there. Do come back to the community another day and let us know how you're getting on. Dawn says, with regard to this mouse issue on Zoom, it vanishes when I'm explaining something on a whiteboard and or winding up a whiteboard session. I end up drawing nonsense in order to find the wretched thing on my screen. Oh, Dawn, that sounds like an interesting one. I'm not sure I have the proper answer for that, Dawn. One thing, have you noticed, Dawn, that with your annotation toolbar in Zoom, on the very left-hand side, there's an option called mouse that you can click. So what I've sometimes found I've done is I've clicked on the annotation toolbar, I've clicked on text or pen or whatever it is. I've drawn on the whiteboard, and then I want to click, say, on the next slide, and I'm clicking and I'm actually drawing. And actually what I need to do is click on the mouse option, and then that goes back to the mouse so I can control the platform. So I don't think that's the answer of what you're looking for, Dawn, but it might be one to have a look at. But maybe we can have a look at that separately, because I'm not really sure I can answer that fully if that's not it. What else have we got? Dawn's asking Sandra how she's finding Teams. We do have a whole thread on the community about MS Teams, which Mike will go and share for you, with some thoughts, some extra stuff on there, some people saying what they're finding on there. So that would be really good, Sandra and Dawn, if you want to go and kind of look on there and add some stuff. And Sandra's saying it feels a bit clunky at first, but once you're used to it, it's great. And you can also use it for breakout rooms. Excellent. And Linda, my pleasure to give you our views. And Ryan, I'm glad that was helpful. Okay, well, I think we're kind of nearly at the end then of what we're asking. As Mike says, we do still have a few minutes for your questions. And if you want to add a bit more detail, or if there's something we haven't quite covered, or we've got a follow-on question, do please pop that in the chat window as well. But what I'd also like is to start thinking about is a bit of reflection, really. And I'd like to know, what is your light bulb moment? What have you taken from today? So we've got a separate chat window on the screen. Go and click on that one. That's something that Adobe Connect can do really nicely that no other system can do. You can have multiple chat windows. I really love it for that. So do go and click in there. What have you learned today? Something about software, something about the experience, something about a question that's been answered for you. Whilst you're having a think and typing in there, I'm going to go back to that main chat. Dawn says, thanks, Joe. It's navigating back to the mouse where it throws a wobble. I'm not so unnerved by it now. Well, that's a good thing, Dawn. Experience is really good in that respect. I'm not sure, if I'm honest, Dawn. I don't have a Mac, and I haven't experienced that on my PC. I think it might be the kind of thing that you'd need to Google, and I don't know if Mike can throw some ideas in chat for you. It's the kind of thing that I think it's probably a Mac user interface, operating system, weird thing going on with Zoom. So you might have Googled it already and not found much yet. You reckon it's a Mac thing. It's only that I haven't experienced it on a PC. But maybe it's something to go and ask in the community, and it might just prompt somebody else to say, oh yes, me too, and this is how I fixed it. So it might be something that somebody will come back to. And do let us know how you get on with sorting that out, Dawn. So in that chat window, what did you learn today? What's your light bulb moment? Dawn says, oh, how cool about this extra chat window. Yes. So this is Adobe Connect we're using today. It's very different from Zoom. It's got all the main kind of basic features that you need. But I just think it's got lots of funky stuff that you can do, including things like this extra chat window. Sandra says, I'll find the links useful. That's amazing, Sandra. That's what they're all there for. Hopefully you've all gone and clicked on those or copied and pasted them to have a look at a little bit later on. Linda says, I need to be more engaged with your community and listen to your podcast. Well, Linda, it's not a prerequisite, I promise you. But we have got them there exactly for you to go and have a listen to. And I spoke to, I think it was Eddie was telling me yesterday you were listening to some of the podcasts and said, oh, I didn't listen to all of them. It's like, well, you don't have to. It's dip in and out and find what you find useful. And Linda, you're more than welcome to get involved in the community. That's what it's there for. Hannah says, didn't realise there were so many options. We've only been using MS Teams, but we'll look at different platforms now. Brilliant, Hannah. It's all about, there's two things here. I say, go with the platform you've got and make the most of it. But also it's the right tool for the job. And maybe a different platform will give you different options and features for a better type of session. Ryan says he's learned that the importance to engage with our learners is so important over the virtual world. I've got lots of ideas to take back to my colleagues. Ryan, that's awesome. And please do kind of post in the community with further questions. And you can always contact Mike and myself if you want to chat about anything. And that goes for anybody else as well. Dawn says, my light bulb moment today, Kathy Moore, Order the Book. Yeah, it's a quite expensive book, but it's worth it. It's huge. It's got loads of stuff in there. And Hugh says, great tips. Thank you. It's our pleasure, Hugh. And thank you, Hugh, for you actually kind of asking a question on the community. That's absolutely great. So thank you very much, everybody. Really pleased that you have been here today. And I just want to say on behalf of Michael and myself at Lightbulb Moment, we've had a great session. I don't believe half an hour can go so quickly. If you have more questions, you can always go and ask them on the community. Also, we have another session of our Q&As coming up soon in a different platform called Crowdcast. And if you haven't used that before or seen it, that might be a fun one to go and look at too. Everybody stay safe.